We have some Zach Lowe audio on the Charlotte Hornets we'll get to. If they're talking about the Hornets during the NBA Finals, I guess we should too on Locked On Hornets. Plus, a few draft updates all today on LOH.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to, but faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I'm Walker Mail. You can catch me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., except for this past week where I was on vacation, but I'm back. I'm back in the saddle, both in Wes and Walker's captain chair, as well as Locked On Hornets. And there's my co-captain, Doug Branson. You can find his work on his substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. He's texting, and he's cutting his hair. Look, I know you already did this. I know this, but I get to react as well, live on camera, to the first time that I've had a conversation with you with all. No. This is a big deal. I checked in on vacay last week and did the double take because you had the bangs flowing too when I got to see you last week. It was very different.
They're under there.
Oh yeah. So I need to know the story because I wasn't able to listen. I was outside, very windy where we were. But what led to the decision, Doug? Because it's beautiful. You're beautiful with the stash still there. I just need to know why.
There is no why. I mean, I would love to give you some kind of explanation, midlife crisis, Hornets crisis. There's no explanation. I've said this many times on the show. When it comes to my appearance, my hair, my mustache, my facial hair, I just do what I want. I felt it in the wind.
Not anymore. You don't.
And I'm not the only one, by the way, that it looks different. I noticed you've got a little vacation tan.
Oh, dude, it's It's about 50-50 whether it's sunburn or tan. It's transitioning now, but I did not put on the sunscreen in an unexpected sunny day out in Cali, and so it's going to transition to tan, but I'm kind of red right now. Yeah, I'm not beating the pasty white allegations that I received last week, 2 weeks ago, when I was in a Ricky Bobby costume out at NASCAR. But I digress. Let's move on. Let's talk about some of the Zach Lowe audio where he had a conversation with Jonathan Givony, if we're still calling him that after a week's vacation for me.
Yeah,
Phony Givony. Yep, Jonathan Givony, Phony Givony, all that good stuff. They had a combo on the Lowe Post Pod just last week, but towards the end of last week. And I know you and David talked about it a little bit. But in that article with Givony and Jeremy Woo on ESPN's mock draft, lots of interesting stuff there when they released that at the beginning of last week, Doug, where one of the statements was that Hornets prospects or NBA draft prospects, they're not working out for Charlotte. So Zach Lowe came across that as well, and he asked Givony why. Well, here's what Phony Givony had to say.
It was more of a scheduling issue early on than anything. I think that they'll get who they want in eventually, but what a lot of teams have told me and also agents of the top players that this whole draft process started much later than usual for them because the draft is being held June 26th. It's usually like a little bit earlier in June, and the combine was early. And so there's it feels like the draft should be in a week from now, like not in 4 weeks. And so I just think that there were some challenges for teams and agents just trying to figure out what are all these teams trying to do, and in such an uncertain year, what's my client's range? Like, where should I be working out? And so I think that was more the challenge that they encountered, as well as, what direction is Charlotte going to go, as well as the other teams in the top 10.
The reason Zach Lowe asked Givony that question is because of this from Jeremy Woo in the first sentence. The Hornets are sitting in a tricky spot at number 6 with some prospects unwilling to work out in Charlotte. Doug, it felt very Charlotte-centric, whereas that answer from Givony, he backs out and more so talks about the process as it not necessarily specifically pertaining to just the Hornets organization. Are you eased at all with some of the guys not working out for Charlotte? At least it's not based off of reputation, or is it a problem either way you slice it?
Honestly, I don't think it's a problem. I mean, I think all of these guys have big question marks. And so, yeah, I mean, you would love to have a little bit more intel in terms of individual workouts, but the Hornets have operated a long time as a franchise, drafting when not exactly having those opportunities with certain players. And this isn't some kind of new phenomenon. So it is a new front office, and, hopefully we know that Mitch Kupchak, I don't know if he's still there or if he's part of the organization. It was sort of muddy how he left. Hopefully there was some scouting, ease of transition scouting information so that all of that could be, sort of brought over to the new front office. And there are a lot of tools that they have to get to these guys, whether it's Castle or Shepard or Topic or any of these guys. I mean, Topic is injured, so you're not even really going to get a chance to see him in an individual workout. So I don't know. I'm just that's the least of my concerns, is that they can't get a guy in for an individual workout, honestly.
Well, I mean, the thing is, again, it felt against the Hornets more so than just how the situation is coming about anyway, right? That I didn't see that write-up from Wu or Gavoni anywhere else with these teams until Gavoni talks about it there, where he's like, look, it's actually just some scheduling stuff. But also, if you look at the Hornets at number 6, it makes a lot of sense to me as to why some of these players that are trying to maximize their value or get some kind of advantage would say no to Charlotte. If you're a point guard and you picture yourself as that, hello, Stephon Castle, maybe Reed Shepherd, Rob Dillingham, I don't know what they picture themselves as, but maybe you're looking for the path of least resistance, and LaMelo Ball is the point guard here. So maybe you're looking elsewhere. You're not going to win a battle against him unless you think he's going to be hurt and not here any longer. Okay, so now there's 3 guys we're talking about at a position where they don't want to compete with LaMelo. Brandon is your starting backcourt player alongside LaMelo right now. So then you go to the big guy, Donovan Clingan. You have a young center that the Hornets have already invested in. Yes, again, the health caveat's very real with Mark Williams, but if we're looking for the path of least resistance, well, then maybe it's Donovan Clingan going somewhere else and just having a shoe-in to be the young starting center for whatever other team there is, instead of battling with Mark, who has given us glimpses and given us flashes of nice basketball. It's just the health stuff. So if you're Clingan, I would understand that. That's 4 guys, Doug, in that range where it makes sense, where they wouldn't work out for Charlotte. It doesn't seem very clear in the write-up, but it makes it more so where the pressure's off of Charlotte when Gavoni talks about it, and it's just kind of the situation at hand.
Well, I'm sure early on in the process, there are guys that want to be viewed as a top 5 prospect. And if you go and immediately work out for the team at number 6, I think that can do some damage to this idea that you are a top 5 prospect. Now, as the situation, as workouts occur with other teams, as people start to talk, as agents start to talk with front offices, and your draft position becomes a little less clear, I don't know if I'm going to be a top 5 pick or not, then, you come crawling to the Charlotte Hornets to make sure that you have a little bit of a floor at that point. And so, I could see Charlotte, as we get closer to the draft, getting some of these guys that may not have been as eager to work out for them. But here's the thing. Charlotte is not going to be a free agent destination. It's not going to be a draft destination. I mean, you just look at P.J. Washington, right? Where he is when he was with Charlotte and where he is with Dallas, being NBA Finals, featured on national television, the perception of him as a player is suddenly altered in a way that's honestly pretty extreme, even though I think generally he's the same kind of player. People just view him a lot differently when he's with Dallas and he has a chance to compete. So I think if you are one of these players, you're looking at a team in Charlotte that has not been to the playoffs since 2016, has not won a playoff series since they were born. I mean, they probably weren't even alive the last time the Charlotte Hornets won a playoff series.
Yeah, you're right about
so,
that.
I don't blame any of these guys for not wanting to be there, but that's beside the point because the Hornets have the draft pick. Same with the trades. Oh, you don't want to be here? Too bad. We're trading for you. The Hornets have to use all of those available options to them and just trap people here until they get good, and then they can become desirable. But you're not all of a sudden going to wake up and be a desirable franchise when you've done all of this losing.
All of that, what you said, is true in the sense that the Hornets shouldn't care all that much about what the player wants at that regard, only so much. My point is, it even doesn't seem like what you're saying, though, right? It doesn't seem like the players have that reputation and are holding it against the Hornets as to why they don't want to go there. It seems to be positional based. You have a player here already that I don't want to compete with. I want to be a top 5 selection. The Hornets have the 6th overall pick. If they get the top 5 spot in the lottery, then is this happening as much? And now it's solely based off of you have somebody at the spot I want to start. I don't know. Because we can talk about it more. Something else that just came to mind. Is there a rookie that comes in and starts right away? Maybe we talk about that a little bit. We got a lot more to get to coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Do you think there's a shot that a rookie could get drafted by Charlotte and they start 40 games this season without injury? Is that a possibility? Okay, there we go. Answering the tease. Thank you. Also, we have some draft updates from Doug Branson on the other side. Still to come here on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Okay, Doug, you answered the question. We didn't get to the grand reveal here, so kind of a good tease, and then it kind of wasn't. But you say yes. You do think there's a player, or you think there's a shot that a first-round rookie could come in, start 40, half the games, and it not necessarily mean because a player got injured at their spot. Who is that player? Is there one that stands out? Or what is the situation looking like if that's the case for you?
Okay, that final little caveat's important there because I was going to mention Donovan Clingan because we just don't know how well Mark Williams – I know that the Hornets think he's a part of the core, but I don't know how well he's going to hold up. So you could throw Clingan in there as a possibility to start over Mark Williams because of an injury. And you could throw a point guard in there too because we don't know how LaMelo balls. So you could throw Devin Carter or you could throw Dillingham in there. So, okay, that's an important caveat. We'll take away all of those players. But you still have to look at this roster and say even with some of the upgrades, the surprise upgrades that they made at the trade deadline, it was a surprise to the franchise as well, not only to fans. Even with that, this is a roster that is really devoid of talent. So even though this is a weak draft, to think that there aren't players in this draft that could come in and immediately start and be upgrades for the Charlotte Hornets is kind of silly. My question to you, Walker, would be this. Do we have this conversation from the perspective of the Hornets bringing back Miles Bridges, or do we have it from the perspective of them losing out on Bridges in free agency?
Well, you might just have to call me silly. I think it would be very hard for a rookie to come in and start without the health caveat. I hate it. That's the umbrella we have to speak under. But without that, I think it would be hard. Clingan is a good one to bring up. If Mark Williams, even if he's just, I don't know, if he's not getting better, maybe they go to Clingan and then he ends up doing well enough. Maybe that would be the guy, health or not. But you look at the backcourt, LaMelo and Brandon, I don't see anybody taking those jobs away. So now you've got your starting backcourt figured out. At 3, who fits that bill in the first round? We're talking Ron Holland. We're talking Matas Buzelis, who might fall to them, I guess. I think
Buzelis is not going to be ready right away. I mean, I would look at Dalton Knecht and say Knecht is the one guy I feel like you go – because, I mean, he and Brandon would be interchangeable there at your wing positions. And then even you go Miles if you keep Miles, or Grant Williams if Miles goes away, and then you fill in behind Grant Williams after that, and then Mark Williams at 5. So Dalton Knecht, and I know a lot of people shiver at the idea of taking the older player who was like one of the best college players. You know, the Hornets have tried that before, and it didn't exactly work out. But, I think we should stop. I think I'll be the first to say that I'm a little guilty of this, is that over the past, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, I think we've been brainwormed into this idea that, like, if you're 22 years old or older, that you're just dead as a prospect. I mean, because this draft has been all about finding players as young as possible. And, I look at a guy like Derek White, who's having a serious impact for Boston now. It took him a few franchises, but that's a guy that was drafted older. I just don't think we should be so afraid of drafting the older, the wiser, the guy that can come in, I think, and contribute immediately. And so, I don't think Connect is certainly not number one on my big board, but I wouldn't be mad at that. And I think he's one of the guys that has an actual chance to fit in a starting spot and contribute.
Yeah, I think it would have to be Dalton is so impressive. He goes 2, Brandon goes 3. Because right now, I guess I don't know who would take that spot. Miles Bridges being like your starting 4 if he comes back. And then It's the Mark Williams Klingon situation. That's the best shot. But even so, I think the fire is there with the smoke that the Hornets really like Mark Williams and they want to see how it works. I think there's enough there with them not thinking there's a long-term injury scare here. Whether they're right, I don't know, but I do think that their fire is there with them not thinking that. So it'll be interesting. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later on. Draft updates, what you got for us here, Doug, as far as mock drafts? We need to get that in, as well as some of the updates that you have.
Yeah, I'll have the mock draft in a minute. I did have a little bit of a disappointing update because I have been big on Ron Holland. He's been high up on my big board of players that I would like to see the Hornets look at there, because you look at the on-ball defense, you look at the size, wingspan projections for Holland. He looks like a player that can be, just a high-level defender for many years, something that the Hornets need. And and he was a guy too that, out of G League Ignite, that a lot of people thought, oh, this guy's got number 1 pick potential. Started to slip a little bit, but Walker, it looks like he's starting to slip even more. I'm looking at these tweets from Tyler Rucker, who is part of the No Ceilings NBA draft analyst, and he's saying, been telling those who can't understand why Holland is slipping, it's not just the questions on the court. There's talent for sure, but more than just being talented. So there are whispers now that Holland could even be going completely out of the lottery. Certainly going to get drafted on night 1, but is not even looking like a surefire lottery pick. So just disappointing because, again, just on its face, looks like a player that would fit exactly what the Hornets need right now, but seems like there's some other stuff going on.
One of the few players that fits positional size very well for this team, where you're talking about a lot of other guys who are the shooters. They're tiny. Even Dalton Connect, who is taller and bigger than Rob Dillingham and at least taller than Reed Shepherd, he's still on the tiny side if we're looking – he's fine at 2 if that's what you're looking to play him. But Ron Holland had the size. Like, that's not necessarily a sacrifice you're making if you're looking for him to play the 3. It's the shooting, the skill – and other reasons as to why he's falling. Plus, you enter this conflict, Doug, with liking Ron Holland and also having, over the last 5 to 10 years, being the guy screaming from the mountaintop, don't take the prospect that falls in the draft. That is the forbidden fruit. And now you are having to come to the realization, oh, wait, yeah, the middle of the Venn diagram, Ron Holland is here.
Well, I'm glad the Hornets aren't in the normal position that they tend to find themselves in, which is like 11 to 15, because if Ron Holland were to settle there, yes, that would be a difficult place to take him. I think I'm resigned at this point that the Hornets are going to make an offensive upgrade with defensive upside. And really Shepherd, with his vertical leap, his athleticism, some of the stuff that he showed off at Kentucky, says, all right, yes, there are definite physical tools that he doesn't have that project out as a really good defender, but he's got some upside there. And then Connect, he's going to have to be great offensively, and he's probably going to be like an average defender, kind of like Gordon Hayward. I mean, Gordon Hayward was a good defensive organizer and could stay with certain guys, but it wasn't like Gordon Hayward was never in danger of winning, a Defensive Player of the Year award or all defense or anything like that. And so, Connect could project out as a similar type player. So I'm kind of resigned at this point. As like anybody but Dillingham, I think, is really where my head is right now. Let's not go and get the guy that's all offense with zero defense projected. I think Connect or And maybe Buzelis too. Buzelis is somebody that sees that projects out as a two-way player as well.
Weird draft for sure. I'm kind of with you. I think for the most part, we agree on that. Let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
I deleted my mock draft. I'm going to pull my mock draft back up. I'll get to that in the third segment.
All right, there you go. There's another tease from Doug Branson. We'll bring up the mock draft. Plus, we'll discuss the Hornets' reputation and what kind of situation they're in right now. We'll get to all of that in the last segment coming up next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else, and LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier, and they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You should too. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. More Locked On Hornets ahead. He's got it ready, folks. We move on from the draft updates to the mock draft. It's been a while since I've had a mock draft in my life. I'm ready for this one, Doug. What
you didn't mock on vacation? You didn't just bathe yourself in mocks?
No, I didn't. I
Wear
bathed in sun. Yeah, I did not. I
Swim
like
with
that.
the crocodiles?
It took us way too long to get to those. I like it though. I'm ready to swim with the mocktails right now.
Mocktail?
Let's hear it. No mock. Oh no, all cocktail. No mocktail. Yeah, so that's where I don't want one. What you got, Doug?
Okay, this mock draft is from the one, the only Gary Parrish of the Ion College Basketball Podcast, which is produced by our friend Nada Edwards. And Gary has his latest mock out for CBSSports.com. He's got Sarr going 1. He's got Reed Shepherd jumping all the way. Talk about his vertical leap. He vertically leaps up to the number 2 slot, supplanting Zachary Risacher, who goes 3rd to the Rockets. Klingon goes 4 to the Spurs. Buzelis misses the Hornets by 1 spot at 5. And the Hornets do the thing that I think most people have projected them to do all along, even though it has been a little all over the place, and that is draft Stephon Castle, who is, I should note, he lists as a point guard here because that's what he wants to be. But if you look at just his size, he's 6'6", 210. Dalton Connect, the shooting guard, is 6'6", 213. I mean, they're the same size. And we didn't mention him in that conversation about defense in the last segment, but that's because I was talking about guys that are, really good offensively, and especially from outside, and project to be okay defensively. Stephon's kind of the opposite. He is like great defensively. He would plug right in there, but offensively there are still some big question marks, and the biggest question mark of them all would be, in terms of the starter conversation, would be, would he be willing to start in a starting lineup where he's not going to have the ball in his hands a ton?
No, and even the problem with that is even if he comes off of the bench, he's not going to be the lead point guard, especially if you keep it as currently constructed with Vasa Micic and Trey Mann. Those are going to be your lead ball handlers. Trey Mann started all those games without LaMelo healthy, and then Micic was better than Mann at times at that spot. We actually have some depth. We've talked about it a couple times, but it's nice to have at least a little bit of depth in the backcourt, especially at point guard.
Castle is 1 year too late for the Hornets. You know what I'm saying? Like I honestly, I've been joking that I'm like writing him off because he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to play for the Hornets. He doesn't want to work out for the Hornets. He doesn't want to, he wants to play point guard, whatever. But honestly, like I feel for the guy because if he is drafted by the Hornets, like what is he going to do if he does start, alongside Melo and Brandon Miller? He really is going to have to exclusively focus on being a lockdown defender, because unless that 26.7% from 3 was just an anomaly and he actually can shoot. If that's the case, then great. But like rookie year, when you are going to be possibly the 4th fifth option in a starting lineup in terms of scoring, and you can't shoot? Like, what's that role? It's confusing to me.
So basically, can you be Isaac Okoro early on that actually develops a respectable offensive game? That's what happens.
That's a name, by the way, Okoro. A lot of people have, free agent opportunity, or I don't know, free agent or restricted free agent. I'm not sure what his status is, but his name has been like, ooh, that could be a guy that fits if they don't take Castle.
That's true. I've actually come around to thinking it's so funny. We don't envision Castle as this on-ball guy, and so I think we pish-posh the idea. But also, okay, wait, that would be pish-posh. It would be nice to have somebody with some secondary ball handling ability off of the bench.
If they buy in, right?
And if they should, and even if it's developed in year 2 more so at the NBA speed, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that he has that. And so even if I don't need him to be point guard, the lead guy. I know that's what he's talking about, but perhaps both backs could be scratched if he has that secondary ability in the second unit, because I just don't think he's going to start. I don't expect that to happen. So we'll see what happens with Castle. Do you want to get to the Hornets situation, or do you want to save that for?
No, we got time. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do the Hornets situation. There's some more sound coming from the Lowe Post Pod. And here's Zach Lowe talking about, I wouldn't be out on LaMelo Ball. There's some of that discussion being had. But also, I actually kind of like where the Hornets are right now. Here's more from Zach.
There's something worth at least looking at there with Ball plus Brandon Miller, who I thought was fantastic for them, plus Mark Williams if he gets healthy, plus whoever they might get in this draft. I wouldn't be in a rush to just bail on that before seeing it a little bit. I thought LaMelo was a little more diligent getting to the basket and probing into the paint before he got hurt last year, which is an area that he and the coaches have talked about. Like, I've got to get better at that. That struck me as interesting, and I'm glad to hear it's more of a scheduling issue, because if I were a certain kind of player, that situation would kind of be appealing to me. Maybe there are guys who just think, well, LaMelo is just going to have the ball all the time, and I don't want to be like one of the LaMeloettes. But with Miller there, it's an interesting situation.
Yeah, it goes back. He was kind of piggybacking off of what Gavoni said, the audio we played in the first segment. He's glad to hear that it's scheduling and not necessarily Hornets' reputation, because the situation, it could lend itself to something promising for these guys, especially, Doug, when you compare where the Hornets are now to some of the other teams in that area. I think the prize jewel might be San Antonio at 8, because you get to play with Victor Wembanyama. But, Man, are you excited as hell to play for Portland? Same thing with Detroit. Houston at 3 would be really nice. I think they're looking to go somewhere, and you would be playing with some veterans. I'm not saying the Hornets are the best in the top 8, top 10, but I'm also saying I don't think they're anywhere close to the worst situation for these guys looking to get drafted.
Well, it's the used car thing, right? Or the new car thing. When you buy a new car, the moment that it leaves the lot, it loses half its value or whatever. This idea can apply to the Charlotte Hornets, that it looks promising because, just as Lowe mentioned there, we haven't seen it. We haven't really seen enough of a sample size of LaMelo Ball, Mark Williams, just that tandem. And then you add in Brandon Miller. You add back in Miles Bridges, who we didn't get to see with Ball for, an entire season. So all of those ingredients, we don't know what that looks like. And so I guess it's appealing in the way that like a mystery novel is appealing, because we don't know how it's going to end. But I think that if you're a player, you also have to look at it from the perspective of this team has a lot of money locked up into LaMelo Ball. Obviously they're going to stick with Brandon Miller. They could potentially have a lot of money locked up for Mark Williams. And so where is that going to leave you on your timeline when it's your turn to get the money? And we haven't even talked about, do they, go all in for Miles Bridges as well? And so I think you're looking at that, and you're looking at, hey, history of a franchise that hasn't been able to pull it all together. I think the type of player that it would appeal to is somebody that can look at it and say, positionally, I fit here. And, I can look at it contextually and say, new ownership group, new front office. This isn't the Hornets team of old. This is a brand new, fresh look, new coach, Charles Lee. That seems like he's got it all put together. This doesn't seem like I just don't even want to say this. I don't even want to say this. But it just
It's okay.
seems like we're set up for a drama-free off-season and season to come. Now, and also if you're a player and you're, don't actually bet, you'll get thrown out of the league. But if you were a betting person, you'd have to look at this situation and go, look, there are a lot of young pieces here, but a lot of broken pieces as well. Like if I've got an opportunity to play via injury, it's going to happen with Charlotte.
That's what I'm saying. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. Make sure you go read Doug's stuff on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com, and listen to me every weekday on WFNZ, 12 to 3 p.m. via Wes and Walker. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.